Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I am looking at two inks that were made by Sailor, and they were made for the retailer Colt Pens, which is one of my favorite retailers out of the UK. And so the two inks we're looking at today are exclusive inks to Colt Pens. They are Iris and Papaya. So I'm going to look at these on a few different kinds of paper, show color comparison and all of that kind of stuff. Let's get started. So I'm going to start with these two inks here on, this is Tomoe River 68 GSM paper. You can see on the swatch we've got some lovely depth of colour there on Iris. It is a really lovely blue that leans to the purple end. It's got some nice sort of coppery sheen there. What I want to talk about is just show the inks, and then I'm going to show it on some different kinds of paper. So something I love about this ink is the sheen on it. It's not super blanket sheen like some of those Organic Studios inks, things like that. It's just sort of nice halo sheen, and you don't get a whole lot of it in the writing, just occasionally, and particularly on super fountain pen friendly paper. The performance, this one actually performs pretty well. I have it here in a Pilot Custom 823 with a broad nib, which isn't the wettest broad nib, but it certainly lays down a good amount of ink. And the performance on this paper, Tomoe River, as well as on the Rhodia and even the lower end paper performs pretty well. I really like how this ink shades. I like that the lighter shading actually has like sort of this slightly more muted, warmer tone to it. And then the darker shade, that's where we get some of that vibrant blue coming through. It's got excellent flow. Feels lovely on the page, particularly out of that beautiful Pilot Custom 823. But anything on the wetter side, this is just going to feel glorious. And I think the page contrast is really nice. If we look at the writing up close, you'll see there's some lovely shading that comes through. It does occasionally get a little pop of the sheen, but it's just a really lovely, in everyday writing, this is a really lovely sort of, as I said, purple leaning blue. So strong on the blue, a little bit of purple coming through. The other ink we have here, as I said, is Papaya. And this is a very different ink. So Sailor and Colt Pens collaborated on a number of inks, and they kind of run the gamut from highly saturated, vibrant colors through to more pastel-y kind of muted tones. And this is one of the lighter ones, but it's certainly not muted. This is a bright, vibrant orange. It leans, I suppose, on the pinker side or the coral end of orange, but it's really, really lovely. So I've put here that, I should say, I had this in an Asvine P36 with a fine nib, but that is not a dry fine or even a fine fine. This lays down a lovely amount of ink. So it's a light ink. So it, it's on the more lighter side. Probably would be stretching it for professional use, things like that. But it is nice and wet. In fact, it is very wet. If you see the smear test here, like it hasn't even started to dry. So that's really great, if that's what you're into. Vibrancy. This is where these inks kind of really come into their own. It's things like where you want to do underlining or headlining, using it like even like a highlightery kind of thing, where you want to make things stand out on the page. That's where these inks are really, really great. They've got personality, pop on the page, and they look great. The last two comments here are more about all these inks in general, and that they are exclusive, as I said, to Colt Pens. So Sailor is one of the leading manufacturers of ink. They make high quality ink. They're made in Japan, and they are made to an extremely high standard. They're renowned for their range of inks across a broad range of sub brands, if you will. And Colt Pens have these exclusives. So this is the place you can get them. So go check them out at Colt Pens. I'll link to the website down below. You can find them there. And I've said that they are 50ml bottles, and they cost £24. And that'll convert into whatever currency you're on. So this is how they come packaged. Simple, 50ml Sailor dye ink. Nothing particularly fancy. And then the bottle itself looks like this beautiful squarish glass bottle, plastic cap, simple label there that says Colt Pens exclusive, and then the ink, of course. This is a little misleading in terms of the color. That's not exactly the same. It's a little more blue than that suggests, but it's beautiful. And I like the bottle, and so 50 mils of ink for £24, so it does put it into the slightly higher price category for that, but it is an exclusive to Colt Pens and made by, as I said, one of the leading retailers, you know, and high-end ink makers. It's a luxury ink in a lot of ways. You can see there in the writing that we still get some shade, and you know, it looks lovely. It's vibrant on the page, it's really popping, and likewise on this paper, from the writing, it performs really, really well. The swatch comes through a little bit. It comes through on both of those. But in terms of the actual writing, this performs very, very nicely. And actually, you can see the difference in the darkness of the ink versus the lighter ink in terms of the show through as well. Let's look at it on some lower end paper, and I'm going to start with it here on, this is student notepad paper. This is really lightweight Spyrex student notepad paper, and they still look nice, but they're a little more muted in tone. There's not too much feathering, no more than you would expect from any ink on this paper. And if we look at the reverse, I think Iris performs quite well, and the Papaya has bled through a little bit more. It's a lower viscosity ink, which is something I sometimes find with these lighter shades, is that they are slightly less viscous than some of the more saturated inks. And here they are on Reflex 80 GSM copy paper. Once again, a little bit of feathering, but not too much. The colors, once again, more sort of dull, slightly more dull. And the reverse of that page, we get roughly the same kind of performance. So a bit more bleed from the Papaya, and then the Iris there coming through, of course, as well, from a slightly wetter broad nib. And here they are on 80 GSM rodeo paper. I think the swatches look great. Hits of sheen there on the Iris. Papaya looking mighty bold. Once again, very nice tight lines. They look great. The colors here look excellent. We're getting a good amount of shading. The reverse of that shows that, of course, as you'd expect on Rhodia, nothing bleeds through. And then in terms of water test here, put some water down, let it sit for a second and dabbed it up. We can see the colors have moved around, and in the case of Papaya, you sort of split into yellows and oranges. And that's moved around a bit more, and we've taken up a lot of that. But both of these have actually performed better than I expected. You know, I think if you did happen to get your journal wet, or, you know, whatever you're writing on, if you could get onto it fairly quickly, you might be able to save it to be able to still make out some of the detail. Time for a color comparison now, and I'll pull up these coloring cards once again. So there is Iris. It looks great. It's got some interesting sheen on it. Generally, the color looks really good. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up alongside my standard blue, which is Waterman Serenity Blue. And in its base notes, they're not dissimilar. I think, say, the Iris just gets slightly darker and maybe has a touch more sheen. It's closely related, I suppose, also to Ackerman number 5 Shocking Blue in that way. Bit of that red copper sheen and slightly darker tone. And just for the sake of the exercise, here is Robert Oster's Tokyo Blue Denim, which is one of my favorite Robert Oster blues in that sort of darker category. You can see that's more true blue than the slightly purple undertone there of Iris. And now let's have a look at Papaya, and the two inks I've put this up alongside is another Colt Pens exclusive. This one from Diamine, and this is Gruntled Guava. So Gruntled Guava has a bit more of the true orange and less of the sort of that corally kind of color. And then just to put that into context, here's Robert Oster Orange, which is a bright, vibrant orange. You see that there's some similarities in some of the middle tones there, but Papaya doesn't shade any darker. It just shades lighter, whereas orange shades a lot darker there. So that's where Papaya kind of sits in the orange family. So that was a look at two inks from Sailor, made exclusive for Colt Pens in the UK. As I said, I'll link to the Colt Pens website down below. You can find these inks there. They're really lovely. They look great and they perform well, as you would expect from inks made by Sailor. So I hope you found this video interesting. Please like and subscribe. Hit the notifications button, all that good stuff. Please get in touch if there's a way you'd like to support the channel. A big thank you to Colt Pens for sending these out for me to look at. I've got a few other inks that I'll be showing in the next sort of few weeks, which I'm really excited about. Colt Pens do really wonderful collaborations with other ink makers, and we all reap the rewards of that, really. So big thank you to them once again, and check out their website down below. In the meantime, enjoy your inks, whatever they may be, and I'll talk to you soon.